Welcome back to Benny's Custom Works, proudly supported by Valvoline and Sparesbox. Don't forget BCW5 on checkout. This week we're back on the Falcon. Now the last time you guys would have seen this, Gian was sending it pretty hard on the skid pan, having a ball, and it was awesome to see him out there. However, we have found issues with the car, shall we say. As a result of our lock mod, it's put a lot more load on the power steering pump, and we've actually killed this pump. But that being said, I think we're going to be able to fix it by putting a power steering cooler on. Now that pump can't be fixed easily, so we're going to put another pump on it, just a second handy. We got one for 75 bucks from a local wreckers. But I think a good upgrade today will be a power steering cooler. Now we're also going to be doing a handbrake adjustment because it was basically non-existent on the skid pan, and it did work really well before we took the diff cradle out of it. So that's obviously a cable misadjustment on my part. That'll sort that out. And we're going to give the power steering system a good flush with some good correct Valvoline power steering fluid. So let's dive on in. Falcon things. But before we dive in, we've got this fresh new official Drag Week 2022 t-shirt available on the Team Valvoline website, www.teamvalvoline.com.au. And as a thank you to all of our viewers, we've got a discount code BCW15 on checkout on this shirt. That's enough of that. Let's get to it. Woo, Falcon. Let's hope this doesn't turn into a 7-day episode like the last time I touched a Falcon power steering pump. Now, if memory serves me correctly, because it's about 7 million years since I pulled one of these apart, there's a spring there, and you've got to push it in the vise to compress it to get that snap ring out. So this is our power steering pump. It's a vane type pump where these little blades or vanes actually slide back and forth through this housing here. And we've got a asymmetric housing. I can't remember what you actually call it, but basically this encourages the vanes to move in and out of the actual vane block, and that's basically what makes it pump. So the traveling of the vanes in and out is what pumps the fluid, and that's what gives you power steering or hydraulic pressure. So it's a pretty common style of hydraulic pump, and this one is pretty roached, so it's got a bit of galling on this face, same with this one, and the tips of the vanes don't look amazing. So this one's destined for the bin, and we're going to put a second handy in and go again. And hopefully it'll work. We've now come to the point where the power steering system is completely empty of all the original fluid. We've got our fresh pump on, we've got our lines back on and our belt. So now what we're going to do is go up, take the front bar off, and look for a home for our power steering cooler. And we're also going to remove the original one that was in there, which is just a loop line. So what I'm most likely going to do is find a point where we can cut the loop line, and then we'll just flare that tube so that the hose doesn't slide off. But yeah, we're going to keep on trucking and whip this front bar off. That's a power steering cooler in inverted commas in OEM form. All the fridges right now are looking at going, I got that pipe cutter. Self-tapping bolts are the best. Yes, that is actually a thing. I didn't make that up. These are factory self-tapping bolts from Ford. So all I did was drill the hole to 5mm for a 6mm bolt, because these are done like that from the factory. So I've just reused it the same way. Our cooler's in. it's good enough. It's not going to bash on anything. The factory mounts are actually pretty good. Had to do a little bit of trimming on the passenger side one because of the loop line, but that's all going to mount nice and snug. Now we're going to run our hosing through and plumb it up, put some fluid in, put the front bar on, high five and go home. Tight. Yeet. Bit prop. Hate that noise. Hate that noise. Just full of air. Steer test. Oh, power steering. Now that we've fitted up the power steering cooler, I want to go through some of the details of how the power steering system actually works so that if you decide to fit one at home, you're properly equipped with the correct knowledge. So the power steering pump actually has two lines coming off of it, a high pressure supply line which goes directly to the rack and the low pressure return line. Under no circumstances you want to be touching or teeing into that high pressure line because the cooler and the hose that we're going to use for that cooler generally aren't pressure rated for that system. So yeah, you do want to keep in mind that if you are going to plumb a cooler in, you want to go from the rack to the cooler, back to the pump, all on your low pressure side. The easiest way generally to identify the low pressure hose is it's going to be secured to the reservoir via a hose clamp, whereas the high pressure line generally has a gland nut or a hard steel line coming out of the pump. And much the same on the rack end as well. Some racks will actually have just a barb fitting directly on them. A lot of Nissans run that style of system. This particular Falcon has a swage tube on both the low and high pressure line, so this one's probably a little bit different to what some of the Japanese guys are used to. So in that case, today we've actually used a brass joiner to tee into that line or to connect to that line and run to our cooler. But yeah, if you're going to do this, by all means do a little bit of research before you dive in, because yeah, teeing into that high pressure line is going to be dangerous and it'll pretty much guarantee either the core or the hose fails because neither of those are pressure rated. We use transmission coolers generally. Sometimes I use engine coolers as power steering coolers. In the case of the Lexus, I've got a massive engine oil cooler on our power steering circuit because that thing cops a beating. And it's actually been fantastic as well. So I do recommend if you are building a drift car or even a bit of a weekend warrior to fit a power steering cooler because it can keep your rack and your pump alive a lot longer. That being said, these things are notorious for eating pumps anyway. So if this good old Falcon pump dies again, we'll probably look to delete the factory pump and go to an Astra pump, and then we can just make it all electronic, and then it'll go until the end of time because those things you don't seem to be able to kill. And then we can also use one of the BCW power steering deletes. That being said, we're going to wrap it up now. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you next time. What is that? Oh well.